Good evening and welcome to the budget workshop for the City of Laverne. Tonight is night one. I will turn it over to Ms. Phyllis Rogers.
Thank you, Mayor. Tonight we're going to be discussing the general fund operating budget. We'll go through all the revenues, go through all the major departments in the general fund, and have an open dialogue. At any time, if you have a question, please interrupt me. This is a very laid back, open time for you all to ask questions. If you have any questions, I'll try to make this as simplified and as easy as possible so we can get through this budget. And again, this is just the operating part of the general fund. The first thing we're going to start with will be our revenues. In our property taxes, I'm estimating the revenues to be about $8.1 million. I didn't really project any large increases or any decreases from any uncollectible property taxes. For the delinquent property taxes, I pretty much left them the same as previous years, maybe adjusted by a little bit here and there. I'm going to skip on down to payment in lieu of taxes, utilities. I didn't change any budget there. Payment in lieu of taxes, TVA, increased it by 10. The major change that I made in this section of the revenues is the local sales tax. I did increase that to 10 million. That may be a little bit too much, but based on where we're currently running and where we, the revenues that we received in 1920, we were at 10 million, and I'm anticipating about 10.6 million this year. So sometimes we, sales tax is one of those that we just can't pick, get a perfect number on. So if you feel that's too high, just let me know. We can adjust that. But I think that's a pretty good number for right now. Didn't increase anything in the wholesale beer privilege tax. Increased the actual beer tax by just a little bit based on prior year's revenue history. Increased the liquor tax by about $40,000 this year as compared to last year. Increased business taxes by $250. If you look at the previous years, we're trending upward in our business tax. So that's business license. I left them pretty much the same at $3,000. Comcast, I reduced it by about 10 based on trending. We're running a little bit less than what we had been in the previous years, and that's because we have more options now available, and some people are switching back and forth between Comcast and other cable services. Hotel motel tax is pretty consistent. I did reduce it by 1,000 based on prior year and current year's trending. The next section of the revenue statement section is permits. Pretty much left everything the same until you get down to plan reviews. I did increase that by 20,000 based on prior years, last 2 or 3 years history. I did reduce the other permits by a little bit because the last couple of years we're trending downward, so I did reduce that. Going into our state revenue section, we have our VEST grant program. I reduced that to 5,000. Seems like we're not utilizing that, and we will utilize that. We have quite a bit of grant money there, but we can only utilize that for reimbursement for new officer, basically VEST, and they have to be pretty old and expired to get reimbursed for any of our older vests. Overtime reimbursement from the DEA, I increased that. I looked at the forecast in the previous years. We're trending upward a little bit there. The fire training reimbursement, I think the chief is looking at giving me some a little bit, seeing if the numbers have changed. We had heard rumors that it may be $1,000 reimbursement per fire personnel, so we may adjust that. if we see that that's gonna be a true number. Same thing goes for the police. If y'all hear that we're gonna get additional money instead of the 800 per officer that meets the requirements, let me know. Our next big line item is our state grant, and this is the Rebuild and Recovery Act grant. Have been notified, we possibly could expect to receive $811,525. And of course, there's stipulations as to what that can be used on.
What's that for?
It's the Rebuild and Recovery.
So there's very specific
Yeah.
uses for that money. It came through the most recent bill that passed from the federal government that included the $1,600 per person stimulus for those that qualify. This was part of it. They had allotments for municipalities, and ours, based on our size, is $811,000.
And the items that we can purchase with this funds is IT hardware upgrades, capital maintenance. And there's some guidelines that go along with the capital maintenance, mainly maintaining buildings, but there's specific buildings that we can use the money on. Utility systems, roads, public safety, and of course, a new school or existing school renovations. So there's specific things that we can spend that money on, and we have further guidelines on that that we have to abide by. The next line item is our state shared sales tax portion. We are trending at around $3 million the last couple of years, so I did increase that this year. State income tax is the hall tax, and that's kind of phasing out, so I did reduce that. Beer tax, I left it about the same. Alcohol tax, I increased it by a couple of thousand just because we're trending upward. The state gasoline inspection fee, left it about the same. It's trending about the same. And then the last of our state revenue is our street contract maintenance, and that's where our mowing and our litter pickup that we get reimbursed from the state on. And that stays about the same at $4,220.
Phyllis, can you tell us, going back to the state gasoline inspection fee, can you tell us what that is? I know we've had kind of an increase over the years of gas stations, but looks like that's kind of trending downward.
You know, Bruce, I'm not sure if you know much about the inspection fee. Honestly, it's just part of our gasoline tax fees that we get from the state, but it's money that we can, use in the general fund. Most of the taxes go into our state street aid, but I honestly don't have a good answer for you, but I can look it up and find out for you.
Thank you. Bruce looks like he's thinking hard on that one.
No, I don't have an answer for the inspection fees, but yeah, we can certainly find out.
Yeah,
Wonderful. Thank y'all.
okay.
Phyllis, do you have the new gambling revenues in here?
Let me see. I don't. You talked about it. Yeah, I know, talked about it. I don't think I do, Bruce. I don't see it. I'll make note of that. And when we got that last gambling fee revenue, that was based on a quarter. So it's not a monthly fee. So I'll add that in to their gambling. I did leave that one out.
Oh,
Our next section is our.
sorry, boss.
The next section is our recreation fees, and some other miscellaneous. We do have a TML grant, driver's grant that we normally get every year, and it runs about $3,000. Fees and commissions. This comes from our transit applications and various permits. I did trend that downward because we did see a downward turn in that this year. We do occasionally we have our police officers are contracted out to do some security services. We used to do some for Walmart around Black Friday, so I did budget just a little bit for that. Veterans Memorial Wall, this would be revenue that we would receive for any of the bricks that are being purchased. from citizens. League fees, I only put the 4,000 league fee that's in here. I think there is also an additional 10,000 from the maintenance that they agreed to. I haven't put that in here. I wasn't sure if we wanted to budget for that, if we have because we have to budget for the expense side of it. So we may need to adjust this. Bruce, what are you thinking?
Well, for the baseball, softball, that one's at 8,000, I believe. And then you have the 10,000,
It was.
they lowered that.
Reduced their contract to 4,000, but did propose an additional 10 on projects inside the park.
Right.
That both sides could agree on.
Right.
And my thinking is if it's not added in there, and we do come up with something, then that's just gonna show a negative hit on our budget.
Would this also include football and hockey as well?
No, this was just, the striker's contract.
No, I'm talking about the revenue line.
It only includes the striker's contract. Any other league fees, we don't know what those are gonna be. I didn't add any into this.
Okay.
Do you think I should add that 10,000 in here and then increase a line item in the Parks and Rec by 10?
Yeah, we'll need to account for it somewhere.
Okay.
I would also think the other leagues that we have contracts with, I know a contract's not guaranteed, for so many years unless it's there, but if it's a year-to-year contract, I mean, if we've been pretty consistent with it, we include it in there. 'Cause that's money coming in.
We don't really get any contract fees or league fees from anything other than the strikers that I'm aware of.
I think football may pay.
I think it's 2,000 for football and 500 maybe for hockey. Yeah.
Did the COVID thing have anything to do with the numbers fluctuating and
On football, they were
both
gonna
of them? Both of them.
I think baseball, softball league is in pretty good shape, because I think they have well over 200 some odd kids right now, which is a far cry from where they were. Last year's got canceled, the year before that, they were probably at 50 kids, so that's growing. The football league wanted to start the 7-on-7.
Yeah, that didn't make it.
That's why their contract was adjusted, to incorporate that 7-on-7. Somewhere down the line, that's probably gonna have to come back before you guys to have that adjusted, since that spring season for them is not gonna take place.
I just thought that might be why Phyllis was kind of dabbling with the numbers, because it was,
No, the strikers have control of the fields now, so in their proposal, they kind of sweep the pot with 10 grand on top of their contractual fee of 4,000.
okay.
What's not included in there is the amount of tournaments.
And I think,
Per tournament, they pay a fee to.
and I'm not sure if that's not included in the field rental, which is a couple lines down. I did add 1,500, or do have a budget of 1,500 in the field rentals. And that may be where we've been putting some of the other.
Does this amount include axe throwing?
Bruce hasn't really gotten back with it so bad yet.
I haven't seen a contract yet.
Is that the ice skating axe throwing?
Yeah.
What about throwing an axe while you're ice skating?
Our next line item is recreation fees, and that's mainly pavilion rentals. I left it about the same. Field rentals, I did increase that. Again, I think this is where we're putting maybe some of the football fees and field rentals, or it could be tournament rentals. The next line item is our rental for the multipurpose building. We trended down a little bit this year, so I took that budget down. Wasn't sure what COVID's gonna do the rest of the year, so that may come back and be a little bit more than what I've budgeted for. Our next section, we've got library fees and fines and donations. I did reduce the fines and penalties. Of course, we kind of waived some of those in this year. I'm not sure if we started charge anything back, or have you gone back to charging for that? Okay. So I reduced that one down to 500. For donations and gifts, I reduced that down to 200. If you'll see, look at the forecast, we're not really collecting a whole lot of funds right now with the library. Copies, I reduced that down to 2,000. Fax machine, I reduced that down to 500. I know Donna's starting to collect a little bit of money on that now, but we haven't been all year. Lost books, I reduced that to 100. Lost cards, I reduced that to 50. The sale of used books, I reduced that to 50. And then children's program revenue, I reduced that to $50. In our next section is our court fines. I did reduce the court fines way down. I just looked at, 1920 and looked at 2021, and it just appears that we're, well, as we all know, we haven't been didn't have court for a while, and just noticed the revenues has gone down quite a bit there. And it shows the same with Rutherford County. Rutherford County's not collecting as much on our behalf, so the court fines are going down too, and same thing with the state. So it's not only us, it's everybody else around us. E-citation fees, I did reduce that based on where we're running this year and where we ran last year. Same thing, we have two parts of the e-citation fee. We have a $1 fee, and then we have the $4 fee. So I've reduced both of those based on where we're currently trending. DUI impound fees, I reduced that to 500. You'll see that last year and this year we're trending down. And then the sex offender registry, seen a little bit of an increase in that, so I did adjust that by $500. Our next section is our interest. Of course, with the COVID and the economy the way it is, we're not receiving the interest that we have been in the past, so I did reduce that. Insurance recoveries, we do receive, I really shouldn't have probably budgeted here, but since in the previous years, we're trending quite a bit of money, I thought I'd go ahead and add 20,000 here. And this would be any kind of claims that's settled by the insurance company for any vehicles, damaged vehicles, or total vehicles. And then it did include $1,500 for sale of general items, fixed asset, police supplies, and police fixed asset. These are the items that we put on Gov Deals. Next line item is our GHSO grant. That's the Governor's Highway, which is actually the THSO now. It's not called GHSO, but I did reduce that just based on where we've trended at so far this year. And then Parks and Rec, Howl at the Moon, I reduced that to 1,000. Wasn't sure if we're going to continue with that. Next line item is the Old Timers Festival, projected about 8,000. It's pretty much our standard. We try to get more than that. This is like booth fees, and I did not budget for the pageant this year. From my understanding, we kind of curtailed that for a while, or there's another pageant around the same time. Contributions, we generally get about a $300 contribution for the fire department every year. Fire training and rescue, this is revenue that we get for citizens other than employees that go through our first aid program. Miscellaneous, other financing sources, I just projected about 8,000 for that. We generally get about $1,000 a year for the Windstream right-of-way. And that, if you sum all of that revenue up, it comes to about $25,841,945. And I pulled in the expenses from all of the departments in the general fund. If you'll see, we have expenses of operating of $22,794, and we'll go through all those in a minute, but this is kind of a sneak peek at where we're at. So that leaves us with about $3 million, But we gotta remember, out of that 3 million, we've got 811,525 that we can only spend on specific things. Really won't be part of the departmental operating budget, so that 811 will have to be projected out for some kind of capital when we discuss capital next week. Any questions on revenues before I switch over to expenses? Am I moving too fast?
Let me ask one question. I know it's come up year after year, and I can't remember if we ever got it. I remember Chief Walker talking about that big case.
Yeah, we never got it.
Talking about what?
That was
There's a
20, I
big-
think it's December of 2016, and
Yeah, there's-
either it never has gone to court, or it was settled, or we didn't, still,
So it's still sitting out there as potential revenue from the DEA portion of it, of a drug bust case,
this was a
Yeah,
very,
I remember.
so.
this is a very large case that our guys worked it all the way down through Florida, wasn't it, Chip?
And that would go in the equitable sharing, wouldn't it?
Yes, that would most likely come through the
It
equitable
wouldn't be in
sharing,
general
because
fund,
there are
it'd be in
several-
equitable sharing.
There would be a lot of other agencies involved in that, and hopefully one day we'll see something.
How
out
much
of it.
money will that mean for us?
Well, at one time, it was gonna be quite a bit, wasn't it, Chip? I mean, I wanna say close to $1 million or 900. Yeah. So. Any other questions for revenues? Okay. If not, we'll move right on to expenses, and we'll start with the legislative board. And generally how I do these, since there's so many departments, we'll just kind of highlight any major changes that I had to make for operating. I can tell you up front, most of the departments, about the only thing we changed was wages and benefits. And you can kind of see that whenever we go through this. If you compare current year budget to our new budget. So for legislative board, you'll see a reduction in overall for that department, and that has to do with when we change board members, whether or not they have family coverage or individual coverage. And I think we had one that we lost a family coverage and gained an individual coverage, so that reduced our expense in that department. So that left that with a total budget of $146,404 for legislative. In our judicial, this is our judge and our city attorney, didn't make any changes because their salaries don't change. So their budget stayed the same, $165,762. Court, you see there's only about a $2,000 difference there, and that's only due to wages and benefits. I did reduce a couple line items by a couple $200 here and there, like traffic school. I reduced it down to 200, and then I reduced small items of equipment down to 100, and I reduced the traffic school material down to 4,000. And whenever I make these adjustments, it's because if you look at trending, we haven't spent the allotted amount, or they're fully supplied up with all the materials that they need. So I've reduced it by that amount. City administrator, again, only change here is wages and benefits. No major changes there. Maybe 500 here, and we did get a new copy machine agreement, so that did increase by about $1,300, $1,400. That's the only major changes there. City recorder, if, we still have one position open in this department, and if we fill that position, the budget will basically be the same as it was in prior year. Tax department, no major changes here. I did increase the tax relief program because we do have more citizens that are signing up for the tax relief. Basically, only changes benefits and wages. Finance department, Again, basically the same thing here. We increased it for wages, increased the audit fee by $500, increased our local government maintenance by $1,000. Basically, that's about all the changes other than wages and benefits. Human resource. That one is down just a little bit, and that's because whenever I budget for a department that has a vacancy, I always budget at the lowest point, which is step one. So this budget may or may not, when we fill that position, which I understand that we are getting close to that, I may adjust that before the final version. Before we do the first reading, we'll have good information on the wages based on any new person that comes on board, so I will be making adjustments. And the same goes for any other department. If I will be making changes to the wages and benefits all the way up through the first reading. And it'll be minor, you know, that we won't see any substantial changes because everybody is budgeted in the operating. It's just that we may have to, somebody might get a promotion and we'll have to adjust for that. And this is the department that we generally budget about $100,000 a year for any legal fees that we may incur. Engineering, no major increases here. Wages and benefits, very few changes here. IT department. You'll see a substantial change over the prior year, and that's because we had some capital built in. We did not utilize all the capital, so we rebudgeted some capital expenses on the fiber lines, and that has to do with the governor's grant. This is money that we have left over that will go into the general fund reserves, and then we're going to reuse that money in the next budget year, and that was $359,000. So if you take the $359 and adjust for the capital from last year, you should have pretty much about the same budget this year as last year. Planning.
Phyllis, real quick, I do have one question on 260, repair and maintenance service. I noticed that went up from 31,000
Yes.
to 56. Was
Yes.
that due to a contract or?
Yeah, every 3 years, we have a renewal on the threat attack virus
It's
protector.
the virus, we renew, we have several, we have several different contracts that we renew, and we try to do some of them on 3-year basis because they get such a deep discount. So this is the 3rd year when we renew our virus protection, so that's why it's like that this year.
Okay.
But then it won't be there the next 2 years.
And I did increase the cell phone, or the telephones in his line item. After talking to Glenn, you know, looking at what we're forecasting this year and what we had in actual expenses for the previous year, obviously we're utilizing more smartphones, which makes the cost go up.
And you also just had a major manufacturer pop out of the market to where there's basically 2 major players, Samsung and Apple. So prices will go up because of that as well.
Other than that, I don't see any other major changes. Down to planning. We did reduce his other professionals' fees in his department, and that was because we didn't have to rebudget for some of the zoning, Volcourt zoning update that we were doing in the previous couple of years. Codes administration. No major changes here. We did take out the impact fee study because we're not doing that again this year. City Hall. Basically about the same. Increase the insurance a little bit, but we have since found that we're getting another discount on our insurance this year, so hopefully that'll offset any increases that we would have gotten. No major changes here. Reduce the repair and maintenance on the building. There were some projects that we had budgeted for this year. Some of them have gotten done. I'm not sure if all of them have gotten done. I did budget for some COVID-19 expenses here, just in case we have to reorder some supplies. Other than that, that's pretty much the same. The police
Yep.
department, go
And
ahead.
with the NES, I saw that there was a rate increase with the NES poll under City Hall.
26, I think, did we not increase that for last year? Yeah, rate increase 2020,
Looks like it goes up and down, up and down.
yeah. I do have a note in here that we had a rate increase. I'm not sure if that will be enough to cover it, the 15,000, because we have been over budget. I'm not over, but under budget on this line item in the past. We only spent 10,000, and then this year it looks like around 12. So I left the budget at 15, which gave us a $3,000 a year cushion. I think that'll cover the increase. If anybody thinks otherwise, just let me know, and we can certainly adjust that. Of course, we do have property taxes now for the properties on Stones River Road. I did include that. And that's basically all for City Hall. Police Department. Let's see what we've done in the Police Department. We have our normal wages and benefits increases. I'm looking at all the other line items. We increased their line item 234, which is the tax law, just a little bit, looking at the previous year. Subscriptions are up a little bit. We reduced the line item 260 by about 20,000, because we've restructured some of that Tyler, what used to be Tyler, and Morpho and Lease Online, some of those items. Other than that, reduced line item 320 because we had money built in last year's budget for active killer kits. So that doesn't need to be rebudgeted. Reduced.
Phyllis, with the wages and salaries for this, does that show all the positions filled except for chief and deputy chief, or is that with?
That's with all the positions. Chip is gonna also talk to the board, either now or when we go over the capital increases or other increases. He has suggested for a vacant IT position, but he would like to make it a different position. I'm not sure if you had time to get that job description together. I think he's gonna be discussing that with y'all about changing that one around. But basically, we have a budgeted for everybody. We didn't take anything out, so we're
Perfect.
whatever we budgeted last year, the same number of people. And some of the line items when I decrease them, it's because we had added extra money in for last year. So I'm not really decreasing the line item. It's just that we had added some stuff in last year it was a one-time purchase, and we don't keep leaving that money there because that was a one-time thing. So if you see any changes, sometimes that's what happens there. One of the big changes was the communication lease, because we're now using the Metro National. Well, the Metro National ended in 1920, so I guess, are we using Tacken now, Chip? And that's at a cost of about $75 a year instead of the $200,000 that we were spending.
That's a good
Again, I put
decrease.
some money in the police budget for COVID-19 supplies if they need to replenish anything that they took out a lot of the capital that we had budgeted last year. And that's gonna leave them with a budget of 8.5. Of course, this year's forecast has a lot of vacancies in it, so if we are fully staffed, we would use every bit of that 8.5 million.
You know, I've been meaning to ask for a long time, this probably involves Garland also, how much money we spend on gas and oil and stuff. Do we have the means to, or is it, even if it's feasible, to have our own big tank somewhere to where the vehicles can, instead of going to gas stations and all of that and buying that fuel in bulk? Is that,
So for the new public works building, we are proposing having fuel tanks with, we have to figure out the system, so we have good control of it. Obviously, Glenn and I talked about putting cameras on it, making sure you can, we'll have good surveillance of it. We'll just have to figure out what kind of, check-in system each employee will have, so we can track vehicle miles and fuel use. So basically, once we get the tanks in place, we'll be able to start buying it at Opus price, which is usually about 30 cents cheaper than what you buy it at the pump, give or take,
well, it'd save a lot of money, wouldn't it?
potentially. And it's also nice for an emergency, because you're not.
It would also help, I know, a few years back, there was gas shortage. Prices trying to get gas, but it would.
True story. Yeah, I've been meaning to ask that to Garland for a long time. I just happened to think about it here.
Any other questions on police or any other department so far? We'll move on down to the fire department. Wages and benefits increased a little bit. And this, I do want to explain, I don't know if I have mentioned this, but the wages and benefits does include a step increase for July 1st. That's just pretty much normal routine that we have in place here at the city, is we have a step system, and we try to, as long as the funds are available, we try to make sure the employees are covered there. We didn't make any major changes to the fire department. We moved some funds around a little bit here and there. We did add, we did move some stuff around in, under clothing and uniforms. The chief wants to track PPE separately, so we moved $25,000 out of his clothing and uniform line down into a PPE line. There's another major change, a few sales up under small items of equipment. That $75,000 had included some previous years' added expense. It was a one-time expense, so we reduced that back down. We reduced, let's see, what else we got here? Pretty much left everything else the same. Like I said, we tweaked a few things, a couple $1,000 here and there, but generally we made it up somewhere else.
Phyllis, the books went up by about 2,500.
That's for the EMT class books. Ronnie, you want to explain that one?
Yeah, that was based on the fact that if the board approves the advanced EMT course, we'll need to offset the cost of the books, so that go up for a little bit of money there.
For a fire department our size, seems like 25,000 is kind of cheap for PPE. I would have thought it would have been a lot higher.
The way that that's purchased, we turnout gear, coats, helmets, gloves, pants, boots, have a 10-year life on them. And the way that these numbers are running, we have a cycle to purchase 5 sets each year to keep us in new gear. So that, in theory, we should systematically take care of that every 10 years, and each firefighter always be in compliance here.
What do you do with the old stuff?
Exhibit, it'll be
Any other questions for fire department? Our next department is emergency services. We have basically $5,000 built into here for lightning detection system. And then we have some nonprofits under line item 734, and this is our Box 100 in Rutherford County EMA. And I have rebudgeted the same amount for nonprofits just to get us a starting point. You do have a copy of nonprofits, I think on the last page of your packet that you have tonight, and we'll discuss those at the end. So just hold any questions for that if you would. Highways and streets. Increase the patching of roads, line item 268, by about 5,000. If you look at the trending in the previous years, we needed to increase that one. Other than that, pretty much everything's pretty much status quo. A little bit of tweaking here and there, but not much. Fleet maintenance. Of course, we do have an extra person this year. We added a person in the middle of the year. Other than that, pretty much everything is staying about the same. No major changes in the rest of that department expense. Culture is several of our other nonprofits, and we'll go over that list shortly. Down to Parks and Rec, we have our normal increases for wages and benefits. We took the pageant expense out of $5,500. Don't see any other major changes here. We did increase programs by about $3,500. Other than that, we pretty much left that budget, pretty much the operating part of it, about the same as previous years. Library. No major changes there. Wages and benefits about the same with when you add in the increase. Don't see any other major changes there. Economic development. Pretty much left that one about the same, plus or minus a few little small changes, and then, of course, wages and benefits. PR. No major changes there. Debt service. We did drop off our CAD system, principal and interest payment, and that's about $163,000 savings a year, and that's pretty much about the bulk of the reduction for our debt services for the general fund. So, you know, we've talked about different debts that we'll be dropping off, and you can see I've added in the comments on the sheet up on the screen. Those are the dates that those bonds will expire, that we no longer will be paying on those. Our last section of the general fund expenses is our operating transfers. And this is where we transfer funds to other departments or other funds that are not general fund that need some assistance. One is our drug fund. We always transfer about $30,000 to help the drug fund out. And then we transfer all of the wages that we pay to the senior center. We cover that. And that pretty much goes back and forth because we actually pay the wages out of the general fund, and then we donate money to them, and then that reimburses the Parks and Rec department.
Phyllis, I'd like to go back over to the revenue section for just a minute. Governor Lee's office is going to be proposing a 2-week tax-free period on all groceries and dining. So how will that affect our sales tax revenue? Just
2 weeks, I don't really see 2 weeks is going to hurt us.
Okay.
And typically, when they do that,
People are gonna buy,
they make up the difference for cities. You know, like for the tax-free weekends, we're supposed to get reimbursed for that amount of money we would have normally gotten. So I'm sure that they would do the same thing if they
and
want to do it
what do
2
most people do when, if they're gonna save money on groceries, they're gonna be buying something else.
Yeah.
It's not groceries, you know. They're gonna be buying school clothes
That
or,
makes sense.
you know, they're gonna be buying, hey, I get to buy a new pair of tennis shoes this week because I'm saving money on, so, you know, we'll get it some form or fashion.
Okay. I just know Alex had sent out that email just a little, just before the meeting got started, so I wanted
Yeah,
to
I haven't seen that.
make sure to bring it up.
So this may be a little premature, Bruce, but going back to debt services and the way things are dropping off and stuff, would this be a good time for me to ask you about, the wish list money? You've been working on that and,
Well, we're getting information from our financial analyst to see what different amounts of bond issues might cost. We've got some preliminary numbers and I didn't bring that with me, but when we talk about the capital projects next week, we'll make sure that we include that. I'm also getting numbers from the Tennessee Municipal Bond Fund so that we can compare the differences between a bond issue and going through that bond fund to see which one might save us, you know, money over the long run. So we'll have some more definitive numbers hopefully next week, and we can possibly look at, you know, what we might be able to afford and not, you know, go over budget.
okay, great.
Do we have any other questions on the general fund operating? And if you see anything that you think I have missed my mark on, or think of anything that we haven't covered, you know, please email me, phone me, call me. Same with the department heads. They know to contact me if they see anything that looks unusual. But they have looked at this thing so many times, they probably know it line by line. Like I said, I did include the nonprofits in your packet. It should be the very last page. Hopefully I didn't miss anybody's. On the very far right-hand side, the column that has, it says requested amount for 21-22. These are the amounts that the various agencies have requested. This is not the amount that I have put into the budget so far, but, you know, I just wanted you all to know who all has applied and the amounts that they have applied for. We've gotten the EMA director's salary. Box 100 is asked for 5,000 more. Chamber of Commerce has asked for the same thing as they did previous years. I have not received RTA and GNRC, and they tend to send us their numbers a little bit later than other agencies because they too are working on their budgets, and, you know, will send us the final numbers as they get to that. Health Department has requested the same amount. We did get a request for Paul's this year for $35,000. MCHRA, Mid-Cumberland, they have asked for more money, but they have asked for more money for the last 3 or 4 years. Luckily, they haven't said anything about us only funding what we've done in the past. That'll be up to the board if they want to increase that. We did get a request this year from Nourish Food Bank, which we didn't get anything from them last year. They've requested $5,000. CASA has requested the same thing. Child Advocacy has requested the same thing. We did get a request from Special Kids. They have made, you know, requests. The mayor and I were talking about this earlier. They've made requests pretty much every year. We've never contributed. We don't know much about that agency and what areas they cover. Motlow has requested funding again. They have different levels of funding, but they have requested the 12.5 again. The Laverne Boxing has requested additional $3,000 compared to what they had requested prior year. Crime Stoppers actually sent me an email said that they would not be requesting any funding this year. And then Carpe Artista has asked for additional $1,000 in funding. Laverne Wolverines, I have emailed them and they indicated they were gonna send something, but have not, gotten.
I know the last couple of years I've been on this board, this probably is not gonna be a final draft, or they'll keep coming.
Well, we have given everybody a deadline, but we've been pretty flexible because
Right.
agencies, they budget at different times. They may be a little later in the season than we are. And we try to accommodate. I try to, ask for it by the 1st of March, and then, I didn't get a lot of responses, and I went back to them and I said, okay, well, see if you can have me something by the 1st of April, and then it gets to the point where we're having a meeting, Tuesday night, so if you're gonna send anything, you need to send it. So we've been pretty flexible, so we still can accept something. But, probably by the time we get to our 3rd budget meeting, we need to not be accepting anymore, because the board is obviously gonna wanna make a decision on that. Child Advocacy, they have requested, both of we fund them through the drug fund and through, general fund. Say that they've sent in their request. 2 that I'm waiting on, and Chip is working on, is the TPSN and the TACP, so they are both working on theirs. And then, of course, we had the Industrial Development Board that is requesting the same amounts prior year.
And I want to say, if memory serves, last year, both the Laverne Boxing and the Rescue Squad and Mid-Cumberland all requested a higher level than we funded. In fact, I believe for just about everybody, we kept it to the same levels as the year before, just due to uncertainty with the COVID-19 just starting.
Right. You said Rescue Squad, I think you meant Box
Or the
100.
Box 100, I'm sorry.
That's fine. Any other questions about nonprofits? And is there any of these that anybody would like to do a presentation? We also allow, if the board so requests, we can contact any of you all want to actually see a presentation.
Is this the right forum for us to talk about these?
Yes,
Yes.
this is an advertised meeting.
Okay. So the pause, seems like there was some controversy about what they do up here for us in Laverne.
There has been discussion over the years. I want to say, Bruce, correct me if I'm wrong, but they have not been funded since Mayor Mosley was in office. And there were some concerns about levels of service in the area and response times. So they have not been funded in many years.
Well, I just remember that, and, of course, the Laverne Rescue Squad, we've had the chief of police that's retired, and we had the chief of the fire department that's no longer with us, so I'm sure Mr. Beasley has not had an opportunity. I don't know, I'm sure Chip has. Have they done anything for the city?
Well, they're not requesting any money at all.
Oh, they're not?
No, sir.
Oh, I didn't have my marker up here.
Yes.
Oh,
They're not.
all right. I had another one here too, but I gotta look. So Chip's working on the Tennessee Association of Chief of Police.
That's correct.
I personally would like to see.
Chief Walker would have a conniption if he knew that wasn't on here.
Yeah, I've been reaching out to them, they had, conference last week, so.
They-
Yes,
Yeah.
the founder of his wife just passed away, so that's what I'm working on.
And they tend to be one of our late bloomer, late.
And the IDB board, Tom, got enough money last year they're up and running and going, and
Yeah, so they're gonna, as long as the board approves it, they're gonna request about the same amount right now. Majority of that's gonna go to legal fees, and if the deal comes through, I can assure you that will be completed, and they probably won't ask for more. But we want to get to a point where they have an adequate amount of acres, legal fees, primarily contracts.
Phyllis, I'd like to see the FOP slash Laverne Boxing and Box 100 as well as Carpe Artista out, just to talk to us a little bit about what they do. I know the bulk of our board is new, so to say, so it'd be good for them to hear it, as well as with the Child Advocacy Center as well, because they do some amazing work for this community.
Yes.
He's, what's his name?
The Child Advocacy Center,
Sharon.
so sharing with them where they,
I
they,
thought it was a guy.
no.
Sharon DeBauer, isn't that Chip?
Carpe
name?
Artista?
Carpe Artista, yes, that's Ron Alley.
Oh, okay, I got you. Yeah, well, I was gonna brag on them because he helped a lot with, giving advice for senior center and stuff.
But does anybody else want to see any other groups?
And I do have all of their requests here if anybody wants to review them.
So, do we wanna hear from Paul's, or is that just a?
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. I'd like to hear from Paul's.
Okay?
Okay. Any others?
Not a request, but just a question on the Wolverine Spruce Band uniforms up to 36. Are they wanting, I mean, they just wanted a portion of that, or what are they requesting there?
Well, that year, whenever we funded that with the proposed budget, we informed them that we're funding a portion of it, not all of it. And what they were going to do, of course, is fundraise and do some other things to try to get to that goal.
Okay.
And so I don't know where they are with that. I know each year that organization kind of changes as classes graduate out.
Yeah, they were having fundraisers for, I guess, purchase new uniforms. I'm not sure if they did or not.
Would you like to hear from from Paul Latour with the Chamber of Commerce? I know Graham works with them, with the Economic Development Advisory Committee, and I've worked with them, but Megan, Steve, do y'all want to hear from them?
Absolutely.
And Motlow, we give them the money, we get a name on the door or something? What's that all about?
There is something that they do.
I think there's
There's
a
something
conference
about
room.
that, I remember it from last year.
I think it's like an upstairs room, but I don't think that's why we're doing it, is you know, different ways to help them, but if we want to hear from them, we can.
I just figured they'd reach out to you or Phyllis or somebody and talk to them, but
I haven't heard from them since last year myself. With COVID, everything's been kind of dicey.
yeah.
Is there any other groups anyone wants to hear from? Now would be the time to say so. Okay.
Any other questions about nonprofits? If not, that will conclude our discussion on general fund and nonprofits. Right now, we will have the nonprofits. Bruce, do you want them to be here next week or at the very last meeting? Well, next week, Thursday, because we have Tuesday and Thursday next week, I believe, for workshops.
Yeah, Tuesday, the next one, we would typically do all of the other funds. And then the third one is when we invite the nonprofits
Okay.
and start talking about capital in that one and the fourth one. So that'll be Thursday next week. We'll try to have nonprofits here.
Okay, so,
Again, Tuesday night, we'll have
Yeah.
all the other funds, and then Thursday night, we'll have nonprofits and capital expenses and capital projects. We'll
Okay.
start our discussion on that.
so next Tuesday, 5:30, and we will be set to go.
Can we check the Brave schedule?
No. Call this meeting adjourned.